This last week I created a task for my composition classes. I'm teaching a third and fifth semester class. The objectives of the course are exactly the same, but I was curious to see how each group would participate in this task when given the chance to work as a group without basically any intervention on my part. So the instructions were to watch a video and based on the information from the video, create a paragraph as a group that would capture basically the essence of that video. And I asked them to work in Google Drive to create and modify the document, and then copy and paste it once they completed it. Copy and paste it over to the blog. Other than that, no other instructions were given, and they were encouraged to work however they wished to complete this task. So I'm going to give some comments because I was observing in both classes and I made some notes, and so I wanted to go over and share my observations. Now the objective or the reasoning behind doing this is not to compare the two groups in the sense that one worked better or worse than the other group. Simply it was to see how both worked differently, which they both did, and to share this openly so that they could reflect on their own process to see what they're able to learn on their own without any intervention on the part of the teacher, and for them to perhaps going forward find opportunities where they might work more efficiently and effectively, helping each other, working together, and again just encouraging them to realize what they can achieve on their own without again any intervention on the part of the teacher. So I'm going to begin with the fifth semester. Now the only difference between the two groups as far as how they work together, it was that the fifth semester, the group that I'm going to begin with, showing my reflection or sharing my reflection, is that they worked 1 hour trying to develop the paragraph, and then they worked another day for another hour to reflect on their own practice. Whereas the third semester had a 2-hour session and were able to do both in one day. So I'm going to begin with the fifth semester and begin with my observations. And you can see here in the blog post the video that was used, the instructions that were given to the group, and below as a comment you should be able to see the paragraph that they created and also their reflection, reflecting on how they felt they worked together, and also making or reflecting on ways that they could have worked better. Again, the point here was to see how they worked, not necessarily even looking at the finished product, in this case the paragraph. So I'm not even going to be making comments on the paragraph. The students themselves can look and compare and make their own judgment on the end product as far as the writing and how coherent and cohesive the actual end product is. So beginning with fifth semester, these are some of the observations that I made. The students began to play the video once through without stopping. Then the students did the same a second time. Then they watched the video again the third time, again watching it just completely through. And I did observe a few students, about three students, who were writing and or typing on their mobile device. Some students are using either a cell phone or a tablet in the class, or even maybe a laptop. There's a few students who are using laptops. And at this point, 3 students were either writing, taking notes, or typing on the mobile device. And after watching 3 times the video straight through, students began to brainstorm, and they wrote out phrases like lowers blood pressure, benefits of meditation, boosts your immune system, helps to deal with other problems, and among others. And so they were brainstorming directly in Google Drive. Then at this point, one student who was typing, because we had a keyboard, and so we imagine we have a big screen TV or a big screen computer, I should say, in the room, and the students were given a keyboard that they could use to actually type data in and have that viewable to the rest of the class. So at this point, one student basically decided to hand over the keyboard to another student to continue typing, which this student did, completed for the rest of the task. The students continued to brainstorm, trying to generate ideas. At this point, the students listened to the video a fourth time and decided at this point to play certain excerpts. So they would pause the video at certain times, brainstorm, discuss, go back to the Google Drive document, make comments, and so they would go back and forth between Google Drive and the video. At this point, I called time. There was 25 minutes left, and students continued to watch the video, playing about 1 minute. So about 1 minute longer, they continued watching the video, and then they again continued to brainstorm, discuss what to include in the paragraph. Most of the discussions were in English at this point, but some were in Spanish. But I would say most of the discussion was in English. Then they decided to play another excerpt, then brainstorm, play another excerpt, and then brainstorm. So again, going back and forth. And 4 students at this point primarily are participating out of a total of 11 students. They play another excerpt and brainstorm again. 5 students are participating, so another student joined in. And at this point, one student from the back of the room moved up towards the front of the group. Now, imagine we have a big screen TV on the side of the wall. The students were arranged in a U shape. So there was one student who was actually sitting in the back and moved up with the rest of the group, at which time they began writing the paragraph. So I'm assuming at this point that the student who moved up towards the front was wanting to participate in the actual writing, because up to this point that person was not participating at all. So when it came time to begin writing, this person moved up towards the front of the group and began participating. So they are discussing what to write, and they are brainstorming what is meditation, so they decided to start discussing what is meditation. At this point I call time, and there's 15 minutes left in the task. So they decide as a group at this point to write the definition first and then describe the benefits of meditation, which is the general idea, the main topic of the video. Students observe at this point that they wrote a sentence in the passive voice and they need to change it to the active voice. Students finish the first sentence, at which time I call time, and or the time remaining, and there are 10 minutes at this point. Students are expressing ideas in Spanish, and others are translating and add to the text. At this point they're speaking a little bit more Spanish, but I would say that the majority they're still speaking in English. Students discussing a lot about the benefits, again in English and in Spanish. I call time. There's 5 minutes left. Students continue to contribute. 8 out of the 11 students participate in various degrees. So maybe it was just very little to some dominating the conversation. And students finish up copy the text over to the blog. So that's basically how the students decided to participate in this task. Again, this is 5th semester. Now I'm going to continue now discussing 3rd semester and compare a little bit to this group. So let me pull up my notes. Okay, now in this group, now again this is the same class, composition class. This is the 3rd semester. And again they met for 2 hours. So they were able to complete the entire task, both the writing of the paragraph as well as the reflection piece, which the 5th semester, which I just shared with you my observations, they met for 1 hour and met another day for another hour to complete the reflection. All right, so this is 3rd semester students. My observations here, there were 12 students who participated in this task. And they listened to the video 1 time straight through. And then the students began to brainstorm. So whereas 5th semester listened to it 3 times straight through before even discussing it, this group listened to it once, then began to brainstorm, writing out key words in Google Drive. They wrote out words such as meditation, habit, training, before and after, social, benefits, people who practice, etc. So they were brainstorming different ideas. 5 students at this point are participating, and both English and Spanish are being used. Students move directly to keywords to the paragraph. So after they complete the paragraph, they have now begun to write the paragraph. They are discussing out loud the order of ideas, and then they continue to write. So they kind of go back and forth between discussing what they're going to write and actually writing. They begin the second sentence and then stop to play the video a second time. So they get well into the second sentence of the paragraph before deciding to listen to the video a second time, again contrasting this to what the 5th semester class did. Then the students play the video a second time with closed captions. So they realized at some point that because this was a YouTube video, that closed captions was available, so they were able to see the text, the written text, as well as listen to the audio and watch the video at the same time. After they listen and watch the video a second time, they begin with continuing with the second sentence where they left off. One student at some point proposes an alternative, a complete different approach of ideas about how to write the paragraph, but they continue on writing as is. So they discuss it and basically decide to continue as is. At this point, I call time, and there's 20 minutes left at this point. Students continue to read aloud the first 2 completed sentences. So they complete the second sentence, and then they read both sentences out loud. Actually, one student reads aloud the sentences. This was different than the first group. The first group did not read aloud their sentences. Then the students mention rhyme and theme. So they were looking at the 2 sentences that they had completed at that point, trying to write more cohesively, talking specifically about rhyme and theme. They also discussed the meal plan, or it was mentioned. Again, these were some topics that they had seen in class with regard to cohesion and coherence when writing a paragraph. At one point, they open up an additional window in the browser to Google Translator. They use a translator to translate a word. Students continue with the third sentence. At this point, time is called. There's 5 minutes left in the activity. And basically, then the remaining part of the class where they finish the paragraph as shown in the blog. So my observations, this video that I'm creating here, I'm going to actually embed into both of the blog posts. Each blog post will show the task, it'll show the video, the task instructions, the actual paragraph that the students created, as well as the reflection. So you'll see 2 posts on my personal blog along with this video reflection in both of those posts. So you'll be able to see all of this information to have an idea about this experience. And again, the idea here is to just show differences, how both groups work differently, which tools they used, how they chose to work together. Again, this is not a reflection on any one of them as an individual learner, simply an observation on one particular task that actually we tried for the first time. So in this particular class, this was the first time that they were asked to complete such a task by themselves. And again, without my intervention. So I didn't intervene at any point throughout this task except to give the instructions towards the beginning. And this is what happened. So I'm curious to know how others feel, or if they have any comments or suggestions or opinions about this particular task, as well as any of the students, obviously, who actually participated in the task. Feel free to make those comments below in this blog post, and would certainly appreciate any feedback that you might have.